video, I'm going to show you how I built my stackable planters with mesh bottoms. This is a great DIY project if you're working in a small garden and need to maximize vertical planting space. So join me as I show you the tools and methods I use to create this simple yet versatile planter design. For any project that involves cutting wood, I recommend safety goggles and breathing protection so you don't get sawdust in your eyes or lungs. Ear protection is also a good idea. And gloves to protect your hands from splinters and cuts. When wearing safety goggles and a mask at the same time, you will fog up. You don't need a lot of fancy equipment to do this project, and you might even be able to borrow the tools you need. I don't have a proper workbench, so I do my sawing with a circular saw or a hand saw on cinder blocks. I would prefer a table saw or a miter saw because they're a little safer and you can be more accurate. The wood I used is flat top fence boards. It's important to measure as accurately as possible so that the pieces of your planter box fit together well. I use measuring tape and a Sharpie to mark where I want to make my cuts. Next, saw your boards using whatever saw you have chosen. Be very careful during this step if you are a novice at using these tools. Make sure you have a sturdy, clean workspace and keep your free hand well away from the saw blade. Ask for help if you're unsure how to operate the tool. Before assembling, check the lengths of your boards by lining them up. If they're a little uneven, it's not a huge problem, but if they're 1/4 of an inch or more off, like this board, you may need to cut them again to even them up. Check your boards for any irregularities that might affect the stability of your planter box, such as insect damage, cracks, or even large knots in places where you need to saw or drill. It's very frustrating to lose or break a drill bit in a wood knot. I use these adjustable clamps to hold pieces together while I insert screws. You can use any kind of clamp or have another person help steady the boards for you. It just makes it easier to assemble the pieces accurately. You will also need a drill and some wood screws. Before you insert screws, it is a very good idea to drill pilot holes using a drill bit that is a size smaller than your screw. This does take a little longer, but if you skip this step, there's a good chance the wood will split when you insert the screws. I'm building a rectangle, so first I securely clamp one long board to one short board. Then I flip the short side down so it's hanging off of the table. I use my arm to apply leverage to the long side while I drill pilot holes. Then I insert the screws and release the clamps. I repeat this step 4 times until I have 4 angled pieces to make 2 rectangular boxes. If my wood cuts are a little uneven, I will try fitting the different pieces together and pair the ones that fit best. Then I turn the box on its side to drill the 2 angled pieces together. My clamps aren't long enough to hold them lengthwise, so I just use them to align the pieces and then press down with my hand as I drill pilot holes and insert screws. Now I have 2 rectangles. Since they sometimes come out a little wonky, I'll set them on a flat surface and rock them to see which is the sturdiest. That will be the bottom of my box. Next, I decide whether I want the pieces of each box to line up or overlap, as I have them here. I like how they look either way, so it just comes down to what fits together better. Now it's time to connect the 2 rectangles. I use these stakes, which I have cut to size using the hand saw, and place them at the short ends of the rectangle. You can also place them at the corners or place 2 more on the long sides of the box for a sturdier design. I clamp one of these to the top board and one to the bottom, and then we'll drill pilot holes and insert screws right in the center of each board. Here is the finished product with all of the screws inserted. As you can see, these screws were actually a little bit long, but that's okay because they're pointing into the inside of the box. Finally, it's time to add the mesh to the bottom. I use this 1/2 inch hardware cloth, weigh it down with a small weight because it comes in a roll and is hard to handle otherwise, and cut it to size with wire cutters. I will cut off any excess at the ends so that there are no pokey edges. Then I use a staple gun to attach the mesh to the bottom of the box, stapling all the way around at regular intervals. It's okay if the mesh or the wood are a little irregular. You can usually work around it. You can also use a hammer to tap the staples in more securely. The final step is to line the box with weed barrier or another liner of your choice. This will help retain moisture and keep unwanted intruders from coming up through the bottom of the box. You can staple it to the sides or just rely on the weight of the soil. When your boxes are done, just level the ground where you want to stack them and place them in whatever configuration you like. You can place upper boxes on boards if you're worried about the mesh containing the weight of the soil, and you can also anchor boxes to walls with screws or attach them to one another with brackets. In my case, I'm just letting gravity do all the work. Well, I hope this tutorial has been helpful for you. Thank you for joining me, and please leave any questions or recommendations in the comments.